That's what he brought with him.
Thank you.
And there's 8 here, and he has more, so everybody, the massive crowd can have a package.
And is there an agenda here?
The agenda is not there. I usually
Okay.
we have that, but that's okay. Then the other little packet is
Robbie's application.
Robbie's application, yeah, which, I think we should tear up and burn. I don't know the guy's capable of doing anything.
Hey, don't forget this meeting's being recorded.
Hey, do I care?
I'm gonna open the agenda on my phone. And so we're still muted, but we do have a member of the public
Yes.
on,
And who is that? Do we know?
Robert Woods.
Okay, very good. Woody. Okay. So yeah, whenever you want to open it up, we'll get started and we'll. What do you think?
Yeah.
Just let me know.
Oh, we are unmuted. Okay, so everyone should be able to hear and see us, and I just.
Mr. Woods, if you can hear us, can you acknowledge it? Either nod or unmute yourself.
I can hear you just fine.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, and it
Thanks,
must have-
Woody.
It must have automatically started recording too, because
Okay.
we're already recording. So we're good to go. It
Okay.
is.
5:46.
Yes, 5:40.
So it's 5:46. I am going to call to order the meeting of the Open Space Committee for the town of Dayton. It is the 1st of October. Winter is on its way, 2025. We are in our new digs I think we may be the first committee that has met here. And that is in the lower level of Town Hall, which for the past couple of years has been the Children's Library and is now going to be redesignated as a meeting room. And it's a cozy space for those of you who are here and for those of you who will get here someday. First thing I'm going to ask everybody to do is just rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So next order of business is going to be to introduce the members of the Open Space Committee. I'll start with myself, Jonathan Gale. I am the chairperson. And then Danica.
Danica Belknap, clerk.
Good evening, Leonard Hall, member.
So those are the 3 members. We do have 2 open slots. If anybody would like to join, we're happy to accept applications. We have a guest with us tonight, and I'm going to ask that somebody make a motion to suspend the order so that we can go right to our guest.
Do we need to do like roll call with guests or only members?
Members.
Okay. For the public, that's where we don't.
Yeah, we'll get.
All right, so motion to suspend the order of the agenda and move directly into old business item 7 for the land trust development planning.
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. So Ross, I'm going to introduce you. And you are here too. I'm going to let you explain who you are, where you're from, so I don't step on your toes. And I'm going to ask you, I don't know if you need anything to be put up on Zoom or not, or if you have anything you want to share. I know you have some documents here that are handouts. But what we would like to hear from you really is everything land trust that you can share. I know we only have so much time. Mr. Woods, we will make sure that if you or anybody else on Zoom has questions at some point, we will, once Ross begins to take questions, we'll go to you as well to make sure if you have any questions, you can ask them. As well as anybody else who might join us on Zoom or be here in person. So first things first, thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. And I'm just going to let you introduce yourself and go from there.
Sure. My name is Ross Moran. I'm the executive director of the Westport Land Conservation Trust. I've been working in conservation for quite some time, formerly worked at the trustees for 5 years as well. I've been with the land trust now for about 9 years. So, you know, we're a land trust situated in Westport, Massachusetts here, a little bit larger town just south of Dayton. And, you know, we serve one town. We work with our and we collaborate with our peers and our communities around us. You know, our organization has supported the preservation of about 5,600 acres in Westport. About half of that, a little bit more than half of that, is farmland. We are very similar to this area of the state down on the South Coast is known for its agricultural heritage and production over time. And Westport is a prime example of that, as some of the highest concentration of protected farms in the state. It's certainly the highest in this area in the eastern part of the state. So, you know, we focus mainly on farmland preservation, but we also do quite a bit of other conservation projects as well. We own about 1,800 acres that we care for and open to the public for a variety of uses. So I know you all are thinking about land preservation efforts in Dayton. I did share this kind of slide deck that we've used in the past around what a land trust kind of is and sort of how we've approached our work, you know, on this handout here. And so I'd be happy to share anything from that, and certainly want to give you all what is the most useful information for what you're working on.
Absolutely, go for it.
So, you know, I think our organization is just an example of a small land trust here in the state that services one town. It's privately held nonprofit, 501(c)(3). As you might know, there are multiple different types of ways that land can be preserved here in Massachusetts, and through a variety of different agencies, maybe through the Commonwealth, through your own municipality, through a private nonprofit, et cetera. But what we believe is most important for a land trust to be successful is sort of the key components at the very beginning of all that effort. And, you know, I just listed some of that stuff out in here, and is what we talk about is that, you know, a lot of folks think land conservation, they have this picture in their mind of trails and scenic views. And really, we focus our efforts in land preservation, and we talk about its contributions to public health, and why preservation and conservation is extremely important to the health of a community. So when we think about the objectives of conservation or preservation, or the values that a community seeks to you know, preserve for longer term through preserving, you know, natural areas. We think about clean water, clean air, food production in towns like Dayton and other areas, especially in Westport where we are. Folks are reliant upon groundwater for wells, and groundwater filtration for consumption. Biodiversity supports food production. And then, of course, you know, all of these areas of the state, including ours down there, we have a tremendous amount of pride around local food production and the ability to, you know, produce for our community so that food doesn't have to be trucked in from thousands of miles away. So when we think about land conservation, we frame it, our organization and our community, we frame it in that way. And, you know, that's sort of the very beginnings of a really key, it's really key in thinking about how you identify what is most important to your community to preserve and conserve into the future. You know, the second step that we really think about when we think about land preservation, and thinking about the type of organizations that might achieve that preservation is, you know, having a really thorough land planning analysis of your town. I heard you talking about potentially having your open space and recreation plan. So having an inventory of what is important for the town to, and the type of characteristics that the town is looking to, you know, conserve and preserve. That makes it a lot easier to get a little bit further down the road in terms of creating either a private nonprofit or partnering with the Commonwealth to preserve pieces. If your town is on board and has identified the key resources for preservation, it makes it a lot easier to think about how you go about that preservation in the future. So, you know, I just listed out a few things that, you know, we think about, and again, food production, you know, forest and wetland continuity, streams, brooks, and headwaters. Certainly this town is the headwaters for the Taunton River, and has a variety of other valuable streams in this area as well. I believe I don't know this for sure, but I believe there's a stream in Dayton that supports native brook trout. I have to look that up again, but I believe I've seen that on a list
3
before.
mile,
Is it?
3 mile?
Yeah, it might be, yeah. And then, of course, passive recreation, any cultural, historical significance are extremely important when it comes to open space. But all identifying these items are key to your conservation effort and figuring out sort of who is best to do that. So, as you think about the organizations in Mass, there's organizations like ours, land trusts that are, privately held, that are ours. Our land trust is unique in some ways in that we rely less on public funding, but we do partner with our municipality often in land preservation efforts. We are very blessed with the ability to have quite a bit of private philanthropy that funds the effort that we do. That's an opportunity we have in our community that not every community has. I would say most communities that have land trusts that are, privately held 501c3s do rely quite a bit on, philanthropic efforts in their community. But, there's obviously multiple agencies at the Commonwealth that partner with towns like Dayton, like Westport, like others, to preserve pieces in a variety of different ways, potentially owning that land, working with the town to put a restriction on a property that might still remain in private hands. There's also in this area in Rhode Island, there's examples of what we call like a quasi-municipal land trust. This is where, a town may establish a committee, maybe similar to an open space committee that has a charge to be able to acquire land on their behalf. In Massachusetts, most of the time, conservation commissions do that. But there are some rare occasions in this area in Rhode Island. I'm not sure of any in Massachusetts, but where there is sort of this private-public partnership to protect land through that type of land trust. And then, of course, conservation commissions in towns oftentimes when they don't have, a land trust to tap into, can still own land and protect it through Article 97 here in Massachusetts, and it affords it quite similar protections as being in actually more recently, greater protections than necessarily potentially being in a privately held land trust. And then there are statewide land trusts. The folks that have serviced the area in the past around here were the trustees of reservations. I'm not entirely familiar of how much Mass Audubon has gotten involved in this area, but I know Mass Audubon has made a very big effort as of recent to get on to increase their land conservation efforts and approach sort of some statewide goals to preserve land here in the Commonwealth over the next 30 years. So there are those two in particular who are more active in the land conservation field than anything else. That was kind of the quick rundown. I think you all being an open space committee probably at the end of this know that, there's several conservation preservation tools in Massachusetts, including, a privately held land trust, purchasing land and owning it into the future, state municipal parties, acquiring land, like we just mentioned a minute ago, which is protected under Article 97. Conservation restrictions here in Massachusetts, where a private landowner might either sell their rights to development rights to a party, or they might donate those rights. Agricultural preservation restriction, I don't know how many APRs are in Dayton, if any, but I'm sure there are. And that's what the Commonwealth held with Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, and then any kind of temporary deed restriction. So I'm happy to talk more about, hear more about your effort in establishing the land trust, or thinking about the variety of ways you might protect resources, and, just kind of share what we've seen as best practices from there. But that's kind of the overview.
How long has there been a land trust in your town?
So we've been operating for 52 years now. So, during the kind of launch of the EPA in the 70s, there was a wave of local land trusts that were started about 50 plus years ago in conjunction with that. A lot of times land trusts are started, especially local small ones are started, and they're catalyzed by sort of a single property that was really, really important. Sometimes that might be a farm, it might be, a really important piece for recreation around water. And then the ball gets rolling from there. So started out as an all volunteer and became staffed about 25 years ago. So halfway through its lifespan, and the acceleration of our work happened, really over the course of the last 10 to 15 years.
Your staff,
So what,
is that through grants?
Sort of like I mentioned earlier, our land trust our operating is mostly funded by private philanthropy and endowment, that money that we grown over time. Yeah.
How many staff do you have?
We have 4 full-time and 1 part-time. We own 1,800 acres, so.
Yeah. So are a lot of those like maintenance, like kind of like what type of roles?
Good question. So, I'm executive director, run most of our kind of finance, our fundraising, all of our land preservation efforts. I have a part-time admin / bookkeeper who does all of the bookkeeping of our work. We have a full-time development communications person who primarily works on sort of the day-to-day fundraising efforts. We have a stewardship manager who manages all the stewardship and care of our properties. And then we have another person who does mostly education component, but also helps with the stewardship work.
so then let me ask, because so that I'm clear, because you said that it's 5,600 acres,
Yep.
but you said you own 1,800.
Yep, so we've supported the preservation of 5,600 acres. About 2,000 of that is held in an APR restrictions by the state. So we are not responsible for monitoring that restriction, which is really nice. But our organization was instrumental in making sure those restrictions happen. Often, at times pre-acquiring the restriction or funding the purchase of it at times in conjunction with MDR. The remaining acreage is about 1,800 owned by us, and then another about 1,600 or so that we monitor in conservation restrictions. We hold 60 conservation restrictions.
Wow. So let me ask you, and this is probably a loaded question, but you're a 501c3, but you also mentioned there's the trustees, for example, there's the Audubon Society, and so forth. What, from your perspective, are positives and negatives or pros and cons to either or? What are advantages versus disadvantages? Which ones are more likely to be available for support from the state or, I want to say the federal government, but we don't know about that right now. But I really want to say which ones might be more available to be able to get private grants or private foundation funding for purchase or continued upkeep, potentially. Which ones would be more likely to be able to get state funding? You know where I'm going with all of this, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, we are lucky. We are big. We are a big town, geographically in Westport, and so there was a lot to preserve. And there's also a huge community-driven effort to be able to preserve that. And so many people in that town support that effort, both privately, but also show up at town meeting to vote for things like CPA purchase, et cetera. So we sort of have this opportunity because we are, the conditions are right. For some towns, those conditions aren't there from a private philanthropic perspective. And so partnering with a larger organization like a trustees or a Mass Audubon is probably your most effective way to do it. Because they are more likely to be able to leverage resources from outside of your community. Small land trusts we leverage state and federal funds. We've gotten federal funding in the past for several things. We get state funds almost every year for projects. So it's possible. I would say that is heavily dependent on sort of your staffing capability and also the type of project that you're proposing to the state level.
Do you have a
So-
grant writer?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a grant writer?
So we have, it depends on the type of grant. So, you know, a grant that we're looking for from maybe a private foundation. Our the staff person who handles, I have a staff person who handles that. Any kind of state or federal, grants, usually I do the writing for that, so.
Are there times when you've seen the trustees and Audubon work together on projects?
Yeah, in the past, yeah. You know, I think both recognize the need to preserve greater acreage across the state in a variety of ways right now. And so I don't know how much they're working together at the moment, but, you know, I know they have in the past on some things.
What are there, this is a loaded, again, loaded, because I know one of the things that we've talked about in Dayton, in terms of establishing a land trust, is how we can get residents who have parcels of land to consider donating or selling the land to the town.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on ways to do that and how to go about that?
Yeah, you know,
It's not easy.
the hardest part about land preservation is just patience and time, and building a relationship with landowners. You know, being very clear about you know, the town's priorities. And, you know, the reason why you might think a landowner who might have a piece of land that meets those priorities, you know, just sharing and being open with them about, you know, how those values and conserving them longer term is going to be a greater public benefit. And, you know, sometimes that's just, it takes a long time to make that happen. I mean, we just closed last year. We're working with a landowner who owned about 210 acres. I've been working with them for 8 years on thinking about how to conserve all 210 acres. We finally, last year, we bought 115 off of them, and they're conserving their remaining acreage with a restriction. But it took a very long time, and it took a steady presence to be able to build that relationship enough for that landowner to say yes to that. And so I think relationship building is one of the most important things you can do.
So you reach out to people.
Yes, we
Do you
do.
work with realtors?
We do work with realtors at times. You know, most of our outreach is done by me. It's not, we don't hire a realtor or anything to do.
No, I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
You develop relationships.
We do develop relationships with realtors, yes.
But you're
So
really,
we have, I mean, I would say in our area, about half the realtors in town, if they know what we're looking for, and if something becomes available, some of them will come to us before it gets listed, to have that conversation, so.
but I assume a lot of it is really over, as you said, over years, you're cultivating a relationship. And, you know, there's a lot of discussion at times about, and I'm sure you deal with this in Westport as well, there's a lot of discussion, well, you know, there's 210 acres there, you know, somebody, they could sell that and put this enormous development in there. Or they can, you know, let the trust buy it, or whatever they might want to do to preserve the land. That must be, that's the relationship that takes 8 years to develop, am I right? Or no?
Yeah, and you know, I will say again, in our community, there's a real opportunity because most of the folks who grew up on the land in the town are multi-generational on a potential piece of property.
Yep.
And have a real attachment to it, and have a sort of an attachment to the way the town has always operated from maybe an agricultural heritage perspective, or just a value to open space. And so, you know, not every family has that. But, you know, if you're able to build a relationship with a family who does share those values, then it gives you, you know, a little bit more time for them to think about, you know, how you can preserve that resource longer term. Now, I will say, most of the time now, we're not talking about, a donation necessarily, to our organization of land anymore. It's almost always some level of bargain sale or at market value purchase. And so, I'm sure it's the same in Dayton, but Westport real estate values have skyrocketed and are not coming down. So that becomes harder and harder over time. But, I think families who share values and understand how that value could be of public benefit longer term often are more likely to, or are less likely to just put that piece of land on the market, and are more likely to have a continued conversation about how we can, get their value in a different way.
Have you ever had land donated or purchased where, and what I'm getting at here is mixed use? Where somebody will say, whether it's purchase, sale, donate, whatever, X number of acres, I'm just gonna say 200 for argument's sake, could be 50.
Sure.
And they'll say, out of that 50 acres, I want so much of it preserved for recreation or open space. I'm willing to allow a certain amount of development, and then they define what the development means. Could it just mean an outhouse, or could it mean, a small development of, fixed, property for seniors, but built around preserving the open space?
Yeah, so we've had some instances of that, and we've worked with landowners who may own a piece of land where we believe, we might not be able to hit the value that they're looking for. So we get creative with thinking about how, what they could do with a remaining chunk, potentially sell a couple of houses in a very smart way that preserves the conservation resources of the property, so that the family can still recoup the financial value they need, but also, still preserve a really big piece of what they have. So, I would say in the first 30 to even actually, I would say even in the early 2000s, there was a real strongly held belief that if you can't preserve a whole property, then why are you doing it? But now, we have to be more strategic than that, as land trusts, as open space committees, as organizations that are conserving what's left here in Massachusetts that's left to conserve. And so at times, we have to understand that, a community does have to add housing inventory. And so you can get creative with landowners about that.
And I guess that's why, I asked that question. I know, Dayton is in a difficult position in that we know we have to increase housing, we have to add different types of housing. But at the same time, there are a lot of residents justifiably who want to preserve the town the way it was, or the way they would like it to stay. So it's trying to find that mix of how can we grow, but yet maintain the old character. And I'm sure that's a lot of what you deal with.
All the time. Yeah, all the time.
There's a tug with taxes for seniors, many of which had big farms or own large pieces of land. Those developers are looking attractive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, tax rates, residential tax rates obviously have, increased over time, even in like our community, Westport's one of the lowest residential tax rates in the state.
And we're just the opposite.
Yeah.
Right.
So, so that hurts, right? Obviously. There's also, in some ways for some landowners who are interested in keeping something but not ready to preserve it, not ready to sell it, if they're eligible to get into Chapter 61 or 61A, we are encouraging them to make that decision, because it's a really easy way to keep them thinking, but also help them from a financial perspective.
What makes them eligible?
So chapters, there's several different categories for Chapter 61 here in Massachusetts now. There's a forestry effort, which is Chapter 61, and 10 acres of forest. You have to have a forest management plan. DCR will provide a forester for you to help have a landowner develop a forest management plan. That doesn't mean they have to do any cutting, forest harvesting, but they have to have a forest management plan. There's Chapter 61A, which is, if you have tillable acreage meaning, land that can be used for farming. You can get a really significantly reduced tax burden in keeping that in farming. The bare minimum is $500 worth of agricultural product from the property throughout a year. And then 61B would be if the property is used for recreation, is open and used recreation for public recreation. So
That's
there are 61B. That's more rare. It's usually you have 61 or 61A. So
Now, 61B, public recreation, passive recreation, both?
passive recreation, yeah.
Just passive.
It is, I believe most towns, their, more active recreation is usually publicly held, but there is privately held, like active recreation, like fields and things like that too. Those do qualify for 61B.
Hunting?
Hunting would be one if you're open for hunting. That one's trickier. It's not as good a tax abatement, so.
Now, if you trust owns properties,
Yep.
how do you maintain them?
Well, we own everything. We own shoreline, we own farmland, we own public properties with trails, we own our office is a park, essentially.
So hurricane's a nightmare for you guys.
Yeah. Everything's a nightmare for us. No, I mean, we are very efficient. We're very efficient at what we do. I have a very experienced land manager. I come from a land stewardship background. And we have equipment. We have more equipment than, we probably have better equipment than some regional land trusts. And that's purposely because it makes us more efficient. And so, we just have to be smart about what we do. And from from an efficiency perspective in our care.
Thank you.
Who polices your land?
Polices it, I guess, elaborate.
So you're managing the land, you're doing any cutting that needs to be done, clearing that needs to be done, taking care of trails, I assume.
Sure. Yeah.
But who oversees what you do? Do you have a board or?
Yes, so our organization, we're like any other private 501c3. We have a board of directors, that makes decisions for our organization. And our staff report to, namely me. That board makes all of our decisions, including, saying yes to a land preservation project and moving forward with it. Monitors the financial component of our organization, through an annual audit, a variety of sort of your normal nonprofit board functions.
Let me just stop for a second from me asking questions. I know two of you, Leonard, you've asked a few questions. Danica, do you have any questions so far? Or-
Well, I do want to ask about the board. I assume they're all volunteer members, and do you have
Correct.
trouble with recruiting board members? Are they all from the town?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So they're all volunteers. Board development for any nonprofit can be one of the more difficult things, in sustaining longer term. It can be even more, difficult for an organization like a land trust because you're there in perpetuity. You're meant to be there forever. So, the way we approach board development is, we have other, subcommittees of the board that do sort of more day-to-day function. Like they might be a land stewardship committee, an education committee, a fundraising committee. And those folks get involved because they're interested in what we do. And then those folks eventually become board members. We kind of cultivate them to become that. So there's a kind of a recruitment effort and a cultivation effort there. It's not easy. That's probably, I spend an enormous amount of time on that as a staff person and executive director, cultivating that process.
Recruiting and cultivating and maintaining.
Correct. our town is not huge from a population perspective. It's about 17,000. We do have some board members who are from surrounding communities that might have an interest in the town, a broader interest, but most of them come from, that Westport area or are seasonal residents of Westport.
Okay. Thank you.
Do either of anybody here in the room, before we see if anybody online has any questions? Anybody, do you have a question, or anybody else?
I do have a
Well,
few.
let me hold on for a second. I just want to see if anybody visiting us, any of our guests who are here have questions. Rob,
Thank you.
anyone else? No? Mr. Woods, do you have any questions or comments so far?
One question, sir.
Go ahead.
How many solar farms do you have in Westport?
That is a good question. I believe we have 6. And one is, actually, I'm sorry, so there's 7, there's 2 still in construction. A town bylaw really limited more recently what solar production, what clear cutting for solar production could happen. And so that's really kind of scared off a lot of the solar developers in our town at this point, so.
Is any of just to piggyback what Mr. Woods asked, is any of the land trust used for solar?
No, we do not. I know that has been a strategy for some land conservation organizations across the country, but we have not done that, mostly because the solar projects that are being done in Westport are clear cuts of forests. They're not on agricultural land. Westport farmers are they're real good New England Yankees. They don't want to see any solar farms on their farmland. So they don't sell to the solar developers. There's only one that ended up on farmland in town. So, we believe there's, different ways to be able to achieve our goals. But I could see how working with a solar company on a large tract like we talked about earlier might be a creative way to preserve a larger tract. So if solar could be done on 10 acres and you're preserving 40 acres in addition to that 10 acres, that could be a creative way of doing it.
Mr. Woods, any other questions for now?
No, sir. I would like to take a look at that new regulation for the cutting with solar farms, because, that's an issue for me. I'm on the planning board. And it seems like all the farmers and large landowners in the town of Dayton are all interested in solar, because that's where the money's at and they don't have to do any work. The last solar farm, the second to the last solar farm we just put in, they clear cut 21 acres of the most beautiful forest you want to lay your eyes on.
Yeah.
And they cut down every single tree.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah.
So the new bylaw, Mr. Woods, allows for no more than 12 acres to be clear cut. But I'll get that bylaw over to Jonathan to share with you.
Yeah, when he sends it up to me, Mr. Woods, I'll forward it on to you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Mr. Hull, you had some questions?
Yes. Do you work with developers?
It's a good question. Not in the past. But more recently, as we have to think about more creatively how to achieve something, I have had discussions with different types of developers. Yeah.
Especially
one in
industrial.
particular around a developer who specializes in senior housing, denser senior housing. And our affordable housing committee in our town also, we've had discussions over time.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna piggyback on that one for a minute, and then I'll go back to Mr. Hull's next question. Does that developer currently own the land? Are you looking to have the developer help preserve the land, or?
So in those specific conversations, the Affordable Housing Trust, we partnered with them a bit on preserving some open space when they sold the land to a developer for a particular project.
Yep.
So we were at the very beginnings of that, and then the land was specifically purchased for that purpose, for all those purposes. In working with a more private developer, that's sort of a current conversation about a piece of land that hasn't been purchased yet. So the landowner has made it known they would like to sell it, but hasn't put it on the market. And it's a more private discussion.
I think that's something, the reason I was asking about that is we're in the process of reviewing changes for subdivision bylaw. And in fact, we're gonna have a presentation that Danica is gonna be doing next Monday night at Old Town Hall. And one of the things that we talk about there is ways for open space / potentially land that could be developed through a trust to coexist with some affordable housing in a small footprint, using small footprints.
Yep.
And that's part of, I think, what we're looking at too, and we're looking for solutions to do some of that, but preserving that land through the trust process.
Yeah, there's more and more examples of that now. There's a project in Barnstable, I believe, that is very similar to that. There was a project, oh goodness, it stretched my mind. I can't remember if it's not Concord. It was one of the communities up kind of west of 95 up there.
I know Lexington was thinking of some
Riverwalk,
things.
maybe in Concord, I think.
It's not Concord, it was a different community. I'll have to find it and I'll send it to you. But there was a great project that actually was a golf course that was about to go under.
Pine Hills in Plymouth?
No.
Okay.
The town wanted the open space to be preserved, the majority of it. So they actually worked with the developer and the land trust in that area to preserve the 300 acres. They preserved I think they preserved 240 of it, and 60 of it was developed. For really sort of a mix. There was market rate housing, there was affordable housing, and then there was senior housing in there as well. So it was a really big project because of the acreage and scale, but it was an example of how kind of the town, the private parties, and the developers all work together to kind of fill the need for check multiple boxes for the town. So it is. I think when our organization, we have our most success in conserving what we know to be the best natural resources and the most important natural resources in our town is when we work with our town to say these are the important resources to protect. We have a shared understanding of what is most important, what are areas that are important to add housing stock or commercial use, and as long as you're working together in that way, it makes it a lot easier and it opens doors because you're able to, that helps on the building relationship side with landowners too. So
It sounds a little bit, what I'm hearing is, correct me if I'm wrong, is whether we were able to form a 501c3 or work with the Audubon Society or work with the trustees, whomever, whatever way we might go. It sounds from what I'm hearing you say is that we need to establish that first.
yes,
Because from there, the rest of it's gonna take years to develop and coddle and
absolutely.
so forth. But we have to have something on the books in order to do it with.
Defining your most important conservation resources here in town and resources for preservation is the foundation of your effort longer term. Without a doubt, and ensuring that you have community support for that is really important.
So do you know in a town that doesn't have a land trust, who would kind of lead that effort typically?
Well, a town, if they're lucky enough to have an open space committee, they do have some of that. Conservation commissions sometimes take that lead as well, in identifying those resources. Planning departments often will do it through you know, that their master planning and open space planning. But it takes at least some committee or body in town to ensure that when those efforts happen, like a master planning effort, that the conservation portion of it or preservation portion of the work is represented fairly in that. So, you know, that manifests itself in different types of town committees over time. And hopefully also, you know, some private, you know, constituents from the town are part of that effort.
I think that's one of the things that we've started to look at. What are the, you know, we've looked at what are different parcels of land in town. We have a list of parcels of different sizes, and who the owners are and so forth. We haven't done anything else with it except put that together through our assessor's office. And we haven't, you know, there's, right now, we're not even at the stage of reaching out to any of our residents and saying, what do you think about, or talking about, you know, 61, 61A, 61B. We're not even there at this point. We're just beginning the process.
Yeah, I would say that conservation commissions have often been the bodies that would do, maybe host a, you know, a quick info session on chapter 61.
Yeah.
They might do a quick mailer, like drop a postcard, and those landowners who would be eligible for it. And that's sort of like a great way to begin those conversations.
And I think part of what we want to be able to do is to bring open space, planning, Concom together, and form a subcommittee potentially to really begin to explore the ways that we want to go and what we want to look at, because I think that we're all going to need a seat at the table.
Yeah.
So
What's most important is also, you know, there's a lot of sort of kind of these superficial barriers to conservation, right? So some landowners have negative connotations about conservation, or they just think of it as, oh, I'm gonna have my land for trails longer term. And, you know, it's important to emphasize, you know, when you begin to work with landowners, either through that chapter 61 process or whatever, you know, level of outreach that you have, that the effort is really more about sort of those public health components. That's a big part of it. And some of the most important part of the work. And the second big thing is that, you know, you never want to start out a conversation with a landowner with any level of assumption of that they're donating something. In today's day and age, it's a lot harder for a family to start with the conversation at that level.
Yeah.
You know, there are some families that will potentially donate at this point land or something like that. They might leave it through an estate process, estate gift. You know, so there's ways to do that, but you know, you have to kind of meet them at that real point that, you know, land is an asset and it has value to a lot of families. And so you have to think about how that landowner is also thinking, that's top of their mind.
So what I'm hearing you say is that if we were formed and we had some pieces of land in mind, that it makes sense for us to think of, if this piece of land were available, first of all, what would the types of uses be for? What would it be? What are the health aspects of it? What does it do to our community in a positive way? But also, to approach the landowner, it makes sense to be able to approach the landowner and say, we're not here to talk about a donation. We're here to talk about preservation, and this is what's available to consider.
Yep. And, you know, by doing all of those things up front, you know, sort of identifying the key components of a parcel or the conservation resources, it also gives you the ability to identify funding sources that could potentially be used for that. You have CPA in Dayton, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So CPA is often an important one for open space in a lot of communities. And CPA is a tool that can be used in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I'm on CPA, and we've talked about ways that we can use CPA funds and resources as well.
Yep.
So
that's a big one. The state has been, has a major effort to, preserve a variety of resources throughout the Commonwealth. And so they're releasing funds all the time. you know, to help all. You know, and, you know, sort of in addition, the state is pushing, you know, the effort to add to the housing stock in a smart way. So again, if you can be creative, there's different ways to put funding sources together to preserve a piece, preserve the most important pieces of, you know, maybe a larger track.
Have you worked with Nature Conservancy?
We don't work with Nature Conservancy really. They just don't have a presence in our work. I've worked a little bit with the Nature Conservancy of Rhode Island. Because we abut Rhode Island, kind of that East Bay, that area is, we sort of support some of the Rhode Island work over there too, so.
Robert, do you have any questions, or a member of the audience still?
No, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? Mr. Woods, do you have other questions?
No, sir, thank you very much.
Okay. Danica?
I don't have anything, it's 6:35 now.
Yeah.
So-
I know that Ross needs to leave shortly, but I didn't know if we have time for about 3 or 4 more questions, if anybody has questions. Mr. Hull, I thought you were about to ask something, I'm sorry.
No, we're good.
I guess I'll ask one quick thing, if you have any recommendations on how to go about partnering with a group like Mass Audubon or Wildlands Trust, like, I don't know, any general advice, or would it be like, if, say, we had a specific parcel in mind, like, would we approach them then, or?
Yeah, I think some of it could be parcel dependent, more attractive for one of the regional or larger organizations from what their mission is. You know, Audubon is, you know, mainly focused on habitat, and some public use. Trustees focus on a lot of different things, but farmland is also a part of their effort as well, big part of it, in partnership with MDR. And Wildlands kind of, you know, they do a little bit of everything too. You know, and I think sometimes it's about the capacity in that area of the state, meaning like what can those organizations allocate to that area of the state? So I think in this area, your best bet is probably Wildlands and trustees. So how would you go about it? You gotta approach their director of land preservation.
Invite them to the table and
Yes.
see where it goes, because I think we need to do that before we can actually begin to.
Yeah, and you know, they're there and they'd be willing to meet with you and have a conversation. I know that for sure.
And I think they would also have the dollars and the staff behind what we would want to consider,
Yeah, it's possible.
which we don't have right now, or at least they have the direction. They may not have the dollars and the staff,
Yeah.
but they can certainly point us in the direction of resources you noted earlier.
Yes,
that otherwise we don't have.
certainly. It would be a lot easier to work with an organization like that than establishing your own buildings in that way. That would be from the beginning, unless there's a groundswell of folks who are interested in making that.
I guess one last question, how long did it take to establish the Westport Land Trust? I know I assume you weren't there, but like, or from other land trusts, like, to get, like, how many years of planning was it before, like, it actually
Well,
became?
they
a
had started it. It's easy to start a nonprofit.
Yeah.
That's not hard to do. It's about how you maintain it and kind of how effective and well it operates, right? And so the first 30 years, it was a group of, you know, probably 30 people who rotated on and off the board, who volunteered and accepted land, some of which I wish we didn't own actually, because it's not actually prime conservation land. They just took everything at that time that somebody was willing to maybe throw their way. Now, nowadays, you know, you have to be more strategic. You have to understand what you want to preserve, and it takes time and resources to make that happen.
Was for your 501c3, and you said a lot of the philanthropy is local. Was that something that was cultivated a long period of time? Was that something, for lack of a better way to put it, that fell into the lap?
No, I mean, I would say cultivated over time. Yeah, and there's
relationships?
we are lucky enough in Westport to host some of the really spectacular coastline here in Massachusetts. So there's folks with financial capacity who, are also who are also generous, right? So that's an opportunity we have that a lot of other places don't have, and so we recognize that.
There's also the advantage that it helps preserve the type of community that a majority of people in Westport want.
Correct. Yes, correct. It certainly helps with that. I mean, we've been able to, in my almost, in my more than 8 years there, we've preserved about 1,400 acres. But that cost, during that time, we've raised $24 million to make that happen.
Wow.
So almost 25 million. So it's not inexpensive. But we have that opportunity. But with that said, communities that don't have that opportunity still have the ability to access plenty of other funding resources to make that happen. It's just getting creative.
I think that one of the things we want to think about a little bit too is, and I know you and I briefly touched on this for a couple of different reasons, but looking at communities right around here and whether or not they have land trusts. Where Dayton, does Rehoboth have one? Does Berkeley have one? Does Somerset, Seekonk?
Yes, yeah. Rehoboth does have one, Seekonk does have one. Yeah. Yes, they're small, volunteer driven, but they do have, they're good examples of it. The main contact at the Rehoboth one right now, I'm sure would be more than willing to come have a conversation with you.
Yep.
She's really wonderful. So, having conversations with those folks, but also trying to get a conversation with a statewide organization would be really beneficial for you.
Okay. Any last questions before Russ has to go? Because I know we're under the gun too for
Thank you.
time.
Good. You have my.
We'll be in touch.
Contact
Thank you so
information.
much.
Thank you so
very much.
coming down and
Yes.
spending the time
We
and
appreciate your time.
coming all the way up here and visiting the majorly beautiful town of Dayton.
I love it up here, it's beautiful,
You can stop by the Aggie
My
and,
favorite places.
yeah.
All right, take care.
Thank you, Russ. Really appreciate it. I'll be in touch. Thank you.
So the next item is new business. Do you want to go there and discuss Mr. Gear's application? real
Yep,
quick?
so for under new business, we have Robert's application that he submitted. What I would recommend, because he's not on the agenda to be interviewed tonight, because he just submitted it last night. Thank you for being back in town, by the way.
Glad to be back.
What I would suggest is that we put this on the agenda to formally discuss at our next meeting. And I would invite you at that time to come and have an interview, because we do need to go through that process, even though you've been here before.
Yeah.
And then from there, assuming we are voting to encourage you to be on the committee, then we would pass that on to the Board of Selectmen. We meet again the first Wednesday in November. So if all goes the way it would be supposed to, then it would be mid-November. I just, I know we know you, but I think that for the purposes of protocol, we need to follow the
Oh, yeah. No,
the standard. Although in the meantime, we have another meeting Monday night. I would encourage you to come.
on my schedule.
Is that okay with the two of you?
6:30.
We don't need to vote on that, but it is okay with me.
No, we don't need to vote on it, but I wanted to
Yes, no,
get that out there because.
absolutely.
That reminds me,
Absolutely.
we have, you're attending that meeting on Monday, right? So we
I'm
have to
not
post
sure
it.
what time is it.
Yes.
It's Monday at 6.
Well, we don't, it's not, we're doing it as an informational meeting. So it doesn't have to be, because it's only informational. We're not voting on anything. We're not
Okay.
doing anything.
We don't have to post it.
No, it's just, this is an informational, and that's the
But
way
yeah, I
we.
mean, technically, it's not an open space committee
No,
meeting, but we are
no,
just all
we're
going to
just
be there,
sponsoring it.
potentially.
That's all we're doing.
Well, we don't need to post it where we're not
No,
voting.
we had that discussion when the note was put up there and the notice was put up for the town,
Okay, so we definitely don't.
with
okay.
the selectman's office, that we don't need to, no.
Okay.
Correct. Nope. We have what's the next thing on there? Because I want to go back to,
So, motion to resume our normal business, which would go
Yep.
back to item number 4, set the
Yep.
next meeting date for Wednesday, November 5th.
so is there a motion to go back to
So moved.
Second discussion, everybody's cheering and screaming?
Yeah.
All approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, good. So yes, our next meeting date, setting our next meeting date will be the first Wednesday in November, which is November 5th. Yep. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
And it will be in, again, here, our new digs. We're gonna get you meeting down here now, it's great.
Yeah, I like this
Okay.
room we're on.
Yeah, I like this room. Okay, and then the next thing we have is,
Chairman's address.
I don't have anything to report extensively. I think we all know we have a few different things coming up that we're working on. I think that we're becoming more active, which is great. We still have to just reach out and confirm a date. I'll reach out to Mr. Smith again, because he's gonna try and be here tonight and wasn't able to. With the Parks and Recs Committee to see if we can come up with a cleanup date for the town. Obviously, it's not gonna be in October at this point. And it may not be in November, it may not be till early spring, but I will reach out to him. We are in the process, as some people know, we still need, assuming that Mr. Gears becomes a member of Open Space, then we will still have one more slot left. Anybody's interested? And other than that, we are working on the Open Space Plan as well, which will be extended. We have 3 months to work on it, and we'll be meeting with some of the folks in town, some of the town officials, to go over parts that these still need to be done, although most of it's done. The original open space plan went until 2027. There's a state extension. We've applied for that. It's been approved as of yesterday, and I will send the two of you, the extension has been approved. So Danica, you may or may not have it through your office, but I will send it to the other committee members tomorrow, tonight, so you can see that. And we have to have our plan submitted by the end of this year. So our hope is to have it done by late November and get it to the Board of Selectmen for the early December meeting. That's it. That's all I have.
Public input?
Public input?
Anybody here have a public input? Mr. Woods, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the planning board members for showing up. They're a little late, but I guess they didn't think I was gonna cover their ass over here, but maybe you could. Yeah, I know. I was watching you. And I'd like to say hi to Brenda. Hi, Brenda. And for the planning board, while they're sitting there, there was a gentleman here earlier from Westport talking about their solar bylaw that they just amended to reduce a clear cutting of no more than 12 acres. And he's going to be sending us that information. Maybe that's something we should consider in the future.
Woody, if I don't get it from him by Monday, I'll follow up with him, and then when I get it, I'll forward it to you.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. And it was a very good meeting. Thank you.
Do you, Mr. Woods, before you go, and the planning board members here, is everyone aware of the state has released new or draft regulations for renewable energy siting and permitting regulations?
No, ma'am.
So the public comment period is open. There are some, I think next week, there are a series of informational meetings, but it's very relevant to what you were sharing about solar bylaws, but essentially the state is revamping how they permit renewable energy projects, and it's actually changing how like some of the approvals locally are going to be made as well. And they're releasing, they're going to work on a model bylaw that communities can adopt. But I can forward details
Yeah.
about that to you guys. If you're not aware, you should definitely be aware.
Yeah,
What were you saying, sorry?
I was gonna say,
This was raised at a circuit meeting that I covered on my behalf several months ago.
Okay.
So, I'm surprised to hear that the comment period is still open. I thought it had closed.
It's like it's a new round. So there was one round of comments, and now they've released like an updated draft, which is the final comment round
Sorry.
is now happening. I think it's through later in October 17th, I want to say, is when comments are due.
I don't know if Danica has all of your emails, but if not, if she forwards it to me, then I'll forward it on.
I've got your email.
Yeah, I can send it to those who I do have.
So,
Okay.
well, I'll email you with all the on, so you don't have our info.
Awesome, good to know. Anybody else have any comments about anything we've discussed so far?
Mel Capra. Belknap.
Yes.
I actually have a question for Mr. Cavallo.
Oh,
We had a,
Is this part of open space?
yes, it is.
Okay,
Thank you. About a year ago, we had a very nice meeting. Some of the members of Open Space, some of the members of Conservation.
yep.
And if you remember, we talked about maybe a follow-up meeting. Is that still a possibility?
That was the one the meeting you were holding, right?
Is this the subdivision bylaw?
No, it was more about working together so we're not stepping on each other's turf and having a common goal, the direction we would go.
it was really, I think, the concept was to bring together the, members of the, or at least, liaisons from each, the open space, planning, Concom, so that we're not stepping on each other and we're all working, some of the things that we talked about tonight, for example, we were talking about land trust and so forth. So there are some things that we might co-jointly want to work on so that we're all knowing what each other's doing, on the same page. And if we have ideas and concepts, we can take it back to each other's committee and work on it collectively together.
Okay.
So that's the impetus for, I think, what Mr. Hull is talking about wanting to be able to do, which we would love to do. So something you guys may want to consider, because
I think it's a good idea, I just don't know how best to do that. We've been trying to work closely with, between the planning board, stormwater, Concom,
Yep.
zoning. And so we've come up with like a collective, development flow chart that we share amongst our groups.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, we're gonna be discussing it this evening, on a new revision we're working on, so, so that a developer or anybody that comes to the town and wants to do some work here, it's less of a mystery. And it's in a chart, so they can look and they can see what the typical timeline would be and what the steps are in that development.
and I think when you discuss that this evening, if you have no objection, we would like to potentially be at least included on that as liaison.
Sure.
Because I think that's important. And that segues, I think, a little bit into what we're presenting on Monday night. And while we have you here, maybe Danica can take a minute or two and just share with you what she's going to be presenting. Because we've been asking, I think she's presented to most committees in town, or Serpent has, but we would like to see the different committees giving input. So I'm going to ask Danica, she'll just share for a minute.
So just to be clear, I am not giving the presentation. It's another member of Serpent will be
Yep.
presenting, but it's for the town's conservation subdivision bylaw updates.
Yep.
Yeah, so that we've gone to most of the boards now pretty much and gotten input. Ralph, the town administrator, requested that we do a public meeting and allow for some public input on the draft bylaw. So we have like a draft version of an updated bylaw that we're gonna present and collect input on.
Yeah, we're intimately involved
And
with
that's-
that.
yeah.
knowledge.
And so that meeting is on Monday, the 6th, in
6
Old
PM.
Town Hall.
Yep.
Okay.
So if you guys can make it, or if you can designate someone who can make it, I think it's important for everybody to give as much public input as they can. And that's really what we're trying to do, is give the community one last opportunity to really hear about it and give general public input, because the recommendations have to be in by the end of the year.
Right.
So,
Would you be able to forward a copy of that flow chart to us?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
you can forward it,
Thank you.
if you could forward it to me, and that would be great.
Okay. Well, do.
We're almost gonna be out of time, so.
Yeah, so I think, all we have left is stuff we've already kind of addressed. The OSRP extension and the cleanup day,
Yeah,
so.
we've kind of circled back over it all.
Yeah, we have to approve the
Minutes.
minutes. Yeah, we have to
Yep.
approve the minutes from our last meeting on September 16th.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 16th, 2025 regular open space meeting.
Second. Okay, seconded. And any objections? Any of you object?
I don't think
Hearing
we're allowed
none.
to.
All approved?
Aye.
Okay, we're good.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
6:54.
Motion to adjourn. To a
Oh,
second?
second, yeah.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
An aye. And we're gonna log out so that they can log back in. Thank you, Mr. Woods, if you're still there.
You too, sir. Have a good night.
Okay.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you, have a good night.
Take care. See you in front.